Hey, I'm Noel, and I've compiled a list of 10 things you'll definitely want to know or remember before jumping into Lake Cauldron on October 27th. This list could have easily included 20 or 30 things, but I liked number 10 more, so there that is. This video contains major spoilers involving all Alan Wake content released up till now, including the Alan Wake 2 trailers. Just a heads up. Okay, and here we go. Number 1. Alan has been in the dark place for 13 years. There has been a lot of supplemental material to expand the Alan Wake lore post Alan Wake 1, but one thing has remained the same. Alan is still trapped in the dark place. After trapping himself in order to bring Alice back, Alan has certainly gone through it, but all of it from the confines of the writing room deep within Lake Cauldron. He has overcome the frightened version of himself to recapture some semblance of sanity within the dark place. This was explored in both Alan Wake 1 DLCs. In Alan Wake's American Nightmare, he breaks out of a loop that his evil doppelganger Mr. Scratch held him confined to, defeating Mr. Scratch in the end. Whether he was really defeated has yet to be revealed, but we know for sure, courtesy of Remedy themselves, that Alan still resides in the dark place. Number 2. Alan is responsible for the Hiss invasion. Alan manages to communicate with Jesse Faden using the hotline, and during one of his transmissions, we learn how he set this plot into motion. Using the power of Cauldron Lake, he wrote into existence a means for the Hiss to connect with humans, a language. The Hiss incantation is in the form of a Dadaist poem, and Alan made it that way so no human could truly understand it. He just needed to create a way for humans to resonate with the Hiss. This leads Director Trench to slowly trust the Hiss, and eventually open a door for them to invade the headquarters of the Federal Bureau of Control. Alan does this so that Jesse would become director, and hopefully help him escape from the dark place. Number 3. Nightingale wasn't an FBI agent in Alan Wake 1. Not much of Robert Nightingale's origin is detailed in Alan Wake 1, but in the supplemental material released after, we get more information about his life before arriving in Bright Falls. In the Alan Wake novel, it's revealed that Nightingale's partner was evidently killed around 13 months prior to the first game's events, and the mystery surrounding his death led Nightingale to develop a serious drinking problem. It was during this time that he started having terrible nightmares. In them, he sees a man that looks remarkably like the famous writer Alan Wake. Due to reasons unknown, the FBI discharges Nightingale from the force. Sometime after that, he makes his way to Bright Falls in search of Alan. At the end of Alan Wake, we see Nightingale standing behind a window during Deerfest, looking an awful lot like a Taken. Could he be the new Barbara Jagger? Possibly. All we know is that his search for Stephen King, Hemingway, James Joyce is not over. Number 4. Clay Stewart is the man in the nightmare. Clay Stewart is first introduced in Alan Wake 1 during the tutorial dream sequence, but in the later released Alan Wake Files book, his character is confirmed to be real and living in Madison, Wisconsin. In the Alan Wake Files, Clay informs the reader of recurring dreams he remembered, and Alan is always in them. Clay eventually abandons his family and heads to Bright Falls, where he believes his dreams are leading him to. He checks into the Majestic Motel, room number 2, and happens upon Nightingale's dossier on Alan Wake. This compilation of files becomes known as the Alan Wake Files, and it includes interviews with characters from the first game, conducted by Nightingale himself. Alan's writings, such as his first published short story, Errand Boy, and Chapter 1 of his third Alex Casey novel is also in it. Clay eventually moves back to Wisconsin after helping rebuild the Elderwood Visitor Center due to apparent bad weather, but before departing, he spots someone that looks like Alan on the Elderwood Trail. The man smiles, turns a corner, and disappears. Number 5. The Fate of Emil Hartman. In 2011, Remedy published a comic book titled Psycho Thriller that detailed Hartman's fate after Alan locked him inside a room with the dark presence. 9 years later, the world learns the rest of Hartman's story with the release of Control's AWE expansion. In Psycho Thriller, Hartman finds himself face to face with the dark presence, but is ultimately spared because it's determined to capture Alan instead. With the help of Nurse Sinclair and deputies Mulligan and Thornton, Hartman traps a Taken Ben Mott and kills him. The ending shows Hartman making a call to an unknown party, accepting their previous offer and needing a new place to reside. In Control, it's revealed that 4 days later, Hartman is detained by the FBC and his research confiscated. In a last-ditch effort to understand the power of Lake Cauldron, he jumps in the water and turns into a Taken. The FBC captures and transports him back to their headquarters. 9 years later, the Hiss invade the oldest house and do the same to Hartman's mind. The joining of both the Dark Presence and the Hiss within him amplifies their power, and becomes what Alan refers to as the third thing. Jesse enters the investigative sector where Hartman has been running amok, and puts an end to him once and for all. Number 6. The Anderson brothers are more than what they seem. There's a lot of mystery surrounding the two seemingly senile Tor and Odin, and Alan Wake's American Nightmare expands on their backstory and the events following Alan's disappearance. In 1976, the Old Gods of Asgard's song rehearsal awakens the Dark Presence, resulting in Odin cutting out his eye and Tor getting struck by lightning. They can withstand excruciating pain and on occasion demonstrate surprising strength. In 2010, they inform Alan, whom they refer to as Thomas Zane, that the Dark Presence has taken their memory and thought from them. This, combined with many years of drinking alcohol imbued with water from Cauldron Lake, resulted in their somewhat loony demeanor, and yet they are coherent enough to lead Alan to Cynthia Weaver, and in turn, to the Clicker. In American Nightmare, Alan listens to the Eddie Rodman show and learns that Barry has gone on tour with the Old Gods of Asgard as their manager. Whether or not this has truly happened is still uncertain, but Cynthia Weaver, during the events of Alan Wake 1, does mention that Zane was able to communicate with her through the television. In Control, Alice Wake mentions during a documented interview with the FBC that a figure resembling Alan was appearing to her. This goes to show that Alan learning things about the outside world using certain signals is entirely plausible. Lastly, Remedy has revealed that FBI agent Saga Anderson will be a playable character in Alan Wake 2. Her relationship to the Anderson brothers has yet to be confirmed, but if the name of Tor's daughter Freya is any indication, Saga could also be their daughter. After all, they're both named after Norse goddesses. Number 7. Mr. Scratch isn't another Alan. While he may look like a twisted copy of Alan Wake, it is confirmed in Alan Wake American Nightmare that Mr. Scratch is not a part of Alan. Rather, Mr. Scratch is an embodiment of every negative thing ever thought about Alan. He's the bad tabloids, misconceptions, half-truths, evil caricatures, and dark imaginations of the famous writer Alan Wake. Something dark surfaced from the depths of Cauldron Lake after Alan dove into the water for the second time. That entity used all those negative things to characterize its newly attained form, Mr. Scratch. Number 8. There are multiple Thomas Zanes. To be clear, there is one true Thomas Zane, and multiple characters referred to as Thomas Zane. In the This House of Dreams blog posted 2 years after the release of Alan Wake, Samantha Wells buys a new home in Ordinary, Maine. In her final post, she describes a dream she had about a poet who dives into a lake in order to save the woman he loves from the darkness inside of her. The diver recites his masterpiece of poetry, and it creates a new world, a haven away from everything else, and the remaining essence of him and his love exists there, happily ever after. The dream ends with his body returning to the surface with a bright presence inhabiting it, and his lover's body with the dark presence still in control. After discovering a couple poems with the initials T for Tom and B for Barbara, we have a reason to believe that it was the real Thomas Zane who appeared to Samantha that night. So, who was the Zane in the diving suit? How about the Zane that's composed entirely of light in the Alan Wake tutorial? And what about Zane in the Control DLC? Who is he? Well, that's a theory of mine for another time. Number 9. Mr. Door exists in multiple worlds at once. What we know for certain about Mr. Door is what's been revealed in Control or in the trailers and social media posts promoting Alan Wake 2. In Control, Dylan Faden tells Jesse about an encounter he had with Mr. Door in a dream of his. I was in a dark place, and there was a dark man there. His name was Mr. Door, and he told me there are many worlds, side by side, on top of each other, some inside of others. In one world, there was a writer who wrote a story about a cop. In another world, the cop was real. Door said he himself was in all of them at the same time, endlessly shifting between them. Remedy released a photo on social media of Mr. Door and the name of his talk show in Alan Wake 2, In Between with Mr. Door. There are theories that suggest Mr. Door is Martin Hatch from Remedy's title Quantum Break, just renamed and possibly reinvented due to Microsoft owning exclusive rights to the property. Hatch was able to exist in multiple realities at the same time as well, so this could be Remedy's way of keeping the spirit of Mr. Hatch alive. A loophole, so to speak. Number 10. Alan's book Initiation has already been written. This is not only revealed to us in the trailer for Alan Wake 2 by Mr. Dorr himself, but it's also documented in Samantha Wells' blog. In her second to last post called The Title Page, Samantha records the contents of a piece of paper she finds in a shoebox, along with 6 poems and a switch of some kind. On the paper, the words Campbell's Monomyth are scrawled. Written under that, 1. Departure, 2. Initiation, and 3. Return. Initiation is underlined. I'll be discussing everything Alan Wake over on my Twitch channel. I'm at Tell Noel over there as well, so feel free to drop by and get hype about Alan Wake 2 releasing with me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the dark place.
I'm a writer, goddammit.
Correct.